So today we're going to be covering the topic of equations. Now, this is intended to be more of an equation review, and we've got a few simple equations that we're going through. The 4 questions that we want to ask ourselves when going through any equation is going to be these 4 steps. Now, we do realize that there are several different ways that we can solve every equation. This is a generic algorithm that we're going to take that will find an answer for every single style question. The first one, is there anything that can be simplified? We're going to distribute any parentheses, combine any terms, clear any fractions. We're going to try and clean up each side of the equation so it's easier to work with. Next, we're going to follow it up with, is the variable written more than once? So we're going to identify where our variable is written in the equation, and we're going to put them all into one spot. Thirdly, does the variable term have anything else with it? Which means we're going to isolate our terms by following addition and subtraction, and follow it up inversely with multiplication and division by making sure if there is a coefficient or anything multiplied by it, we get rid of that. So without further ado, let's jump into the first question. Okay, so for number 1, we're going to separate this down into a left and a right-hand side. So on the left-hand side, we're going to look at, is there anything that can be simplified over here, and separately anything on the right-hand side. So on the left-hand side of the equation, what we notice is that we have a variable and a constant. Nothing can be simplified over there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. Next, we're going to follow it through and say, hey, how many times is our variable written out? And we notice that our a term is only written once, which means that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say nothing needs to be combined. Lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, is there any other term outside of the a that we need to get rid of? And in this case, we do have a plus 5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract 5 over here, which means if I subtract 5 on the left, I also do it on the right to make sure my equation stays balanced. Okay, which will bring us to, let's see, we'll have a is equal to 10. And there we go. That's going to be it. We jump off into another one. We're going to take a look at this. Now, in this case, I do have a fraction that is in my equation. So what I'm going to do to go ahead and clear the fraction is, first off, I'm going to separate my left and my right-hand side. I'm going to look at the equation and say, I'm dividing by a -9. What would get rid of a -9 on the denominator? Well, in that case, I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a -9 on the outside of the equation and multiply everything in this equation by -9, which is going to get rid of, ideally, this fraction. I don't care what it does to any other part of the equation, I want to get rid of that -9. So if I do that, let's separate, boom, what we've got going on right here. And now 54 times -9, let's see, 50 times -9 is going to be 450. 36, so that's 450 plus 36 is 486. And we get a positive value. And now I no longer have a fraction in the equation. Boom, and just so conveniently, I did actually solve it as well. Awesome. Next, let's take a look at this one. Again, I'm going to separate the equation into a left-hand side and a right-hand side of the equation. As we look through it, I'm going to say, is there anything that can be simplified on the left side and on the right side? And in both cases, no. On the left-hand side of the equation, I just have a variable term and a constant. Can't do anything with it. On the right-hand side, I just have a constant. Can't do anything with that either. So I'm going to move on to the next step. Is my variable written out more than once? In this case, I just have the m written once. Nothing need to be combined. The next is there another term with my variable? And yes, there is. I have a plus 5. I can get rid of the plus 5 by subtracting it. And so if I subtract that 5 and go ahead and write out the next step, my 2m still remains. 25 minus 5 is going to give me a 20. Perfect. Which brings me to my last step. Does it have a coefficient? Is there anything multiplied or divided by my given variable? There is a 2, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide both sides by 2, which is going to leave me with a final answer of m is equal to 10. Perfect. And so what I want you to try is the next one, number 15. Go ahead and pause the video, unpause when you're done, and see how well you did. Okay, now that you've had a shot to try it out, let's go ahead and split the equation. Now, the left side of the equation, if I cover up the right-hand side, I can simplify part of it. I have a +2 and a -6. Those are both constants. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these two pieces. Let's go ahead and separate this out. So the +2 minus 6 is going to end up being a -4. So I have e minus 4 is equal to 3e. Perfect. The next question I'm going to ask, is it written out more than once? And so let's check out where all of our e's are. Yep, I have one on the left-hand side and one on the right-hand side of the equation. So I'm going to eliminate the variable that has more things going on over there. In this case, I'm going to eliminate the variable on the left. I'm going to get rid of this e by taking it away. So on both sides, I take away an e. So e minus e cancels out. I have a -4 is equal to a, let's see, 3e minus e. We know there's an understood 1 right there. It's going to leave me with a 2e. The last step is, does my variable have a coefficient? Yes, it does. It has a 2. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. Actually, probably should have done that in red, because we know that this is our separating line. Okay, so that means that on the left-hand side, -4 divided by 2 is going to give me a -2. And over here, I'm left with just my e at that point. Perfect. So I have -2 is equal to e. Awesome. And then so on the bottom, number 17, we're going to write an equation and then solve. So I want to set up an equation. David's height is 18 centimeters more than Katie's height. So let's set that up. Well, David's height is, so I know David is 18 more than Katie's height. So I'm going to take Katie's height and I'm going to add 18 centimeters to it. Okay. Now I want to solve. Katie is 174 centimeters tall. So I'm going to rewrite this and say this is equal to, actually let's do this in purple because it's a different style question. 174 plus 18. 174 plus 18, that's going to be 182, 192. David is going to be 192 centimeters tall. Perfect. And there we go.